Hi guys, welcome to
the brand new podcast, Young and in Love. Young and in Love.
Young and in Love.
This is the podcast, Young and in Love. Hello, young lovers, and welcome to another episode of Young and in Love. Young and in Love. Again, I'm Josh.
And I'm Taylor.
We're the Andersons. And this is Young and in Love. Young and in Love. Young and in Love.
Young and in Love.
This is Young and in Love. For those of you watching on YouTube, I apologize, but right here at the beginning of the episode, it's only going to be audio for like the first 3 minutes because I forgot to hit the record button. So after the first 3 minutes, the video will jump in and then you'll be able to see our smiling faces. So thanks for watching. Stick around. Welcome back to another episode of Young and in Love. I'm Josh.
And I'm Taylor.
And we are the Andersons, as you heard in the intro every time. Welcome back to another episode of Young and in Love. We are grateful to be here, are we?
Yeah.
Grateful to be here. Grateful to be talking with you all once again and sharing some cool things about change. When I say the word change, Taylor, what do you think? What are the emotions that you've... Did you say money?
Yeah, you said change.
Oh, okay. That's a good word association. What about personal change? What comes to mind?
I feel like, well, it depends on the context. But depending on what it is, it could be exciting and hopeful. But it can also be scary and discouraging and lonely.
And lonely?
Yeah.
Change can be lonely. You want to expound on that?
Like, what if you're the only one changing? I don't know, you can't like relate to people if you're different than who they are, or who you're becoming, or what if you're like moving locations? That's a change. That can be lonely, or I mean, what I just went through, motherhood, basically, becoming a mom. None of my friends are moms for the most part. So in some aspects, they don't relate to me anymore. That's lonely.
Okay. I understand now. That's not what I associate with change. But
I mean, I listed off a whole lot of things that I associate.
Yeah, but I think that brings up an important point that although all of us experience change, we experience it in different ways, right?
Right.
Like the emotions that we associate with change are very different depending on who you are. So I started thinking about change because last week we talked about New Year's resolutions, right? Which is a yearly tradition to sort of look at what you're doing and how your life is going and then propose change, propose potential change to your life and to the things that you're looking to do in the new year. So I've been thinking a lot about my resolutions. Maybe we should start there. How are your resolutions going? Do you remember what your resolutions are?
Yes.
Yeah.
For the most part, I'd say they're going pretty good. The morning is a hit or miss. I did it. When was that? Oh, I did it yesterday. The morning routine that I wanted to do yesterday. And then I didn't go to sleep on time last night. So it did not happen this morning. So, I mean, I would say I'm doing pretty good overall.
Yeah.
Still have yet to waste any produce. So.
Hey, there you go.
That's a perk.
There's a win.
Yeah.
And it's been like 2 weeks since we recorded that episode. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty significant. I'm also doing pretty well. I think this past weekend was the only time that I went more than 2 days. But I was like sort of made up. Because I think I went Friday and then I went Monday. So I guess it was technically more than 2 days, but calendar days was not more than 2 for going to the gym. But I've got a pretty good rough draft of a weekly schedule down. So that's why we're recording this on a Tuesday. I figured a Tuesday is a good day, and then I'll edit the video and the podcast on Wednesday, and it'll probably be published Thursday mornings.
Oh.
Both the video and the audio. So that's a super cool news that the YouTube channel is officially live. So all 31 episodes so far are up there. The first 28 are audio only, but then 29, 30, and 31 all have videos of us talking at our dining room table. So that's cool. And then obviously this episode will be on YouTube as well. And for all of you that are watching on YouTube, hello. So you can find the link to that channel on our Instagram page. So Instagram bio, there's a link there that'll take you to the YouTube page, so you can see videos of us, which is pretty cool. And we'll share those links on our respective social medias and our Facebook page as well. But change, there's a change, right? Now that we have a video portion of the YouTube or of the podcast on YouTube. And then what really got me going on change was I was reading in this book called Creativity Inc. I'm trying to finish all the books that I've started this year.
It's a lot of books.
I think it's like 3.
Oh, I thought you meant like ever. Oh, you said this year.
No, well, yeah, but what other books have I started and not finished? There's this one, there's Napoleon Hill, and then there's the Christ one, Believing Christ.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
I guess the Justin Timberlake book, I started reading that. And haven't finished it.
Never mind. I was thinking of more books.
I guess
you got
The
some more books
by DJ Khaled.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then there's a lot of books that I bought and never even opened
that
are still on the bookshelf. So once I finish all the books, maybe I'll move on to books that I've bought but haven't even opened yet. Anyways, Creativity Inc. It's a book about overcoming the unseen forces that stand in the way of true inspiration. It's written by Ed Catmull, which is the president and founder of Pixar Animation. So he was the president of Pixar Animation and Disney Animation until like 2018, 2019, somewhere around there, where he decided to retire and enjoy his life. So, but this is his book about his leadership skills and how he was able to create a company that's so inspirational and embraces creativity and has had such remarkable films put out in such little time as a small studio. They're quite large now, but started out as a pretty small studio. And in the chapter 8, in the 8th chapter, it's called Change and Randomness. He talks about the inevitability of change, which is where the name of this episode came from. He says, here's what we all know deep down, even though we might wish it weren't true. Change is going to happen, whether we like it or not. Some people see random, unforeseen events as something to fear. I am not one of those people. To my mind, randomness is not just inevitable, it is part of the beauty of life. Acknowledging it and appreciating it helps us respond constructively when we are surprised. Fear makes people reach for certainty and stability, neither of which guarantee the safety they imply. I take a different approach. Rather than fear randomness, I believe we can make choices to see it for what it is and to let it work for us. The unpredictable is the ground on which creativity occurs. So, change is going to happen, right? Whether we like it or not. And I brought this up either on the podcast or to you personally. And I said that I would reason and hedge my bets that a large portion of marriages fail because people resist change. That people resist inevitable change. I'm pretty sure I talked about it on the We're Back episode from right before Christmas. In that, when you're married and when you're living with someone 24/7 and you're establishing a long-term relationship, like, you're going to start to experience things together and you're going to change. And then I specifically talked about it referencing parenthood, right? And that once we become parents, life changes and sacrifices need to be made. And when people resist change, it leads to weakness, right? And insecurities. I think it's pertinent what he says here. He says, fear makes people reach for certainty and stability, neither of which guarantee the safety they imply. So when we sort of feel this change coming, or we can like see the inevitability of change and that we're going to change or grow, or learn, all of these sort of phrases or words mean the same thing, that we reach for certainty and stability. So like the things that we're familiar with. And what he proposes is that neither of these things guarantee the safety that we're seeking, because it's the change that makes us stronger. It's that change that makes us better people. So I wanted to talk about how we've changed throughout our relationship, but also maybe recently, and how that's helped you in our relationship. So do you have any initial thoughts maybe about this quote or about?
I mean, I think we've changed for the better.
Yeah, most definitely.
That's positive.
Yeah.
But I mean, just in general, like, a relationship has changed, like, just surface level, like here, like, obviously our relationship is a lot different now than it was like when we were dating. Like those feelings of just like being so into someone like all the time, or like butterflies, like we could kiss and kiss and kiss and kiss for like hours, you know, and it was like the best thing like ever. Like, I don't know, stuff like that. Like, obviously, like now, like it's different. Like, it's not like that anymore. I'm not saying that never happens, but it's not like an everyday like thing, or like those feelings are constantly like there. But also with that, which is interesting, I like the love that we have now is so much stronger, different, and we're more connected together now than we were when we were dating and we were engaged and when we were first married, when all those things were present that are not like so consistently now. So
yeah, it's this like strange phenomenon that happens often in nature as well. So the fact that you could look at a tree, and after like a year or two, let's say 5 years that a tree's been growing, the difference between what a tree looks like when it's 5 years old and when it's 10 years old is very slim on the outside. Like you between the ages of 5 and 10 for a tree, you can't really tell how old it is. Mm-hmm. But the difference between cutting down a 5-year-old tree and a 10-year-old tree is significant, because that 10-year-old tree has got more substance to it. It's more dense. It's got layers and layers that it's built up over the years from the different experiences that it has to go through. So a windstorm strengthens its roots. A rainstorm will strengthen its branches as they bend and sort of morph with the storm. And then sunny days obviously provide them with enough nutrients for photosynthesis, which grows the tree as a whole. So if you were to try and cut down that 5-year-old tree, it'd be pretty easy. But coming along to a 10-year-old tree and trying to cut it down, you're going to have to put in a significant amount of effort. And the same thing happened in ancient Rome, to sort of nerd out about architecture and engineering for a second. Roman concrete has been seen as sort of the epitome of ancient engineering, because they figured out a mixture of concrete, which is cement and water and an aggregate. So they used like crushed shells or sand. And they figured out a mixture that actually hardens over time, which doesn't happen with most quick concrete that we use nowadays, because people are more focused on time rather than strength. But they've actually noticed, and I'll stay really surface level so I don't screw this up, but that oftentimes the experiences that the concrete goes through strengthens it rather than wears it down, which is pretty incredible. And I think that what you just described is very similar to those two examples, in that although we aren't like lustful like so often and for such an extended period of time, that our love has grown to like a more robust and more sustainable love that can encounter greater trials and adversities, such as parenthood, right? And like major like family issues and things that maybe before it'd be easy to walk away from because that love wasn't as strong. So in that case, yeah, change has made us better. Is there any specific things that you've noticed in yourself that have changed?
I'm more confident in everything. Like, I feel like when we were dating and engaged and like first married, I was sort of hesitant to bring up like any issues or anything negative, like at all, really, just because, one, I hate conflict. I still hate conflict. I just didn't want to deal with it, especially if it wasn't like a super big deal. I'd just ignore it. But now I think I tell you everything. I show you all sides of me, whether it's good, bad, ugly, whatever. You know it all. Like, you've seen everything. And I'm not afraid anymore. What's that from? That's from a movie or something that cool.
I'm not sure.
That's why I said it like that. It like popped in my head. Anyways. Yeah. And I guess I'm more comfortable. And in my head, I guess if there is an issue or something that needs to be talked about, there's no point in me not talking about it, because it's going to continue bothering me. And I know that if I don't say something, you're going to know something's up regardless. And then you're going to get mad at me for not telling you what's going on anyways. So I don't know. Like we like bicker now. That's new. Like sort of like fight. Like, I want to say fight, but I don't know. I think that's sort of like good. Like, it's healthy. We like hash out our issues in the moment instead of just swallowing them and moving on, which we didn't used to do.
Yeah.
In the past. So.
Yeah, I think there's I think obviously we're still in the early stages, so it's difficult for us to see like the changes that have come over an extended period of time. Right? Because we've only been together for 4 or 5 years. 5 years. So it's not like we've gone through like multiple cycles. Because I know that some of our older listeners who have been married or in long-term relationships for 10, 20, 30 years, right? Like my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been together for 30 years, or even my grandparents who have been together for 50 years. That is a moment where you could look back in the past and see sort of your eras, right? Your epicas. I guess it's just eras. Your moments in life where you've sort of transitioned. And when I think about sort of the bickering that you mention now, I think we're both experiencing significant amounts of change,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the first year of parenthood and like the first years of my career and you trying to finish school. I think we're changing like quite quickly. And I think that bickering comes from either seeing like a lack of change in ourselves, but we see it in each other. And then we sort of get frustrated, you know, because I know that happens quite often. Or almost like a frustration that we're changing at all, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think it's a natural tendency for us, for humans, people in general, to always seek that steadiness, right? The consistency. So when we start to see change, it is uncomfortable, and it's new and unique and a little bit fearful, right? So we strive for that certainty, and then we start to bicker when it's not the same that it's been. So I like this idea of embracing change, right? That Ed brings up here in his book. That he says, rather than fear randomness, I believe we can make choices to see it for what it is and to let it work for us. And he groups change and randomness together. So seeing change as a growth and a necessity to move forward in life and to like move along the path of life and the journey of life that we're on, like we need to change. So I think a good way to recognize the change in our lives is to look back, right? Mm-hmm. And how would your life be different had you not changed since we first met, or even since you were in high school or fresh out of high school as a freshman in college?
I don't know. I mean, we wouldn't be married. That's for sure.
Yeah. So even if we had still decided to get married, do you still think we'd be married today if we were the same people we
out of high school?
when we first started dating? Let's just make the line there.
Oh.
Do you think that we would be married today if we had never changed from the time that we?
No.
You don't think so? What do you think would have been our Achilles heel? What do you think would have taken us out? Can you think of something?
I'm trying.
You can call me out too, because obviously it's not me who I am today. So if it was something that I would have done.
Well, one, I mean, you were I wouldn't even say all over the place emotionally. It was almost like half the time you weren't present,
right,
emotionally. And I remember like when we were like dating, getting like really frustrated like with you or just being annoyed. And I would think to myself like when we were like seriously dating, and I think this was like right when he came back from San Francisco and we got back together. I remember thinking out at the gym, walking down the stairs, I think 'cause I was going to meet you after like a basketball game or something, or you were coming to come walk with me or something. And I was like, I remember thinking this, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't know if this is the guy that I want to spend the rest of my life with if I am feeling like this. I had like so many like doubts of like what you were thinking, or just I didn't like how I felt in the relationship. So I wasn't sure.
Yeah, so I think it brings up probably one of the biggest changes that has happened to me since we started dating, which is my attentiveness to emotions and just like the emotional temperature of people and of the room and of our relationship. So just being more astute to emotions, and you could say more empathetic, because it's easier for me to understand what people are feeling and to adjust myself to create a more amicable environment, whether that's in our relationship or with just people in general, in a business setting, in a familiar setting when we go to visit my family or your family. And I think that has definitely had a positive impact on our relationship. Just because, the way you described it is the way how I used to feel about things. Is like, what will happen whether or not I do anything about it. So It led me to sort of an apathetic attitude. And I can think of several things that happened in our relationship since we've been married where I would have just went, no, you're whack. Like, that's crazy. I don't even know what you're thinking right now. And I'm not even going to address it. And I would have moved on. Not moved on like right in the moment, but just like let that stir in my subconscious. And then eventually they'd just pile up and till it broke. So that's a good one to point out. Your willingness to open up.
That's probably the biggest one for me.
Probably would have driven me insane.
Yeah.
And then I know that there was the moment on our honeymoon, right? Where like there was a huge miscommunication. I don't even remember what it was, but it was like the second night that we were married and we had a terrible argument and you were crying. Yeah. And like, I mean, I don't even know if we would have made it out of the first year. Could you imagine if that was the launching point for our marriage, and just every other time that whatever happened that night happened again?
I mean, there were a couple times while we were married, within, the entire first year, really. I mean, not the entire first year, but I would say the first 3 months, like, I cried a lot. Like, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cried a lot.
Yeah. But
yeah, it was,
you were willing to open up, right? And talk about.
Eventually, I think I cried I don't know.
I don't know either,
probably would have been,
working.
It probably would have been easier if I did open up a lot about it. But I don't think I did, which is why I cried a lot.
Yeah.
I don't cry a lot anymore, so that's good.
That is good. Change is good.
I don't even remember the last time I cried, so positive.
Yeah.
Do you remember the last time I cried?
From us?
I don't know.
No. Maybe a movie or something? Like at the end of a movie you got choked up or...
Anyways, that's good.
Yeah. I think it's a good exercise. Like, we did it for 2 different things here, but to look at your life now and to think, oh, if I hadn't made these changes, how would my life be different? If I was still the same person I was 5 years ago, how would my life be different today? And I think it's very telling. Go ahead.
If you never went to San Francisco,
yeah,
would we be married?
I can confidently say with like 96% surety that no, we would not be married. I don't think I would have ever proposed.
Yeah.
But I also had no idea how else to I mean, this is going to sound really bad. I had no idea how else to tell you that, like, what we had been working on just didn't seem like it was going to pan out for me. And I probably would have ended up cheating on you.
Wow.
As like when we were dating, right? So we wouldn't have been ever been
Right.
engaged, but like, because that's just the way that I dealt with my relationships
Oh yeah,
when I was
looking
younger.
at your past, it's like right in line.
Yeah, which is like a terrible way to do it, but I'm not trying to shirk any responsibility when I say this, because I know that there's a couple people from my past who listen to this podcast, but unfortunately, I didn't have enough emotional experiences in my youth to really help me understand what other people were feeling, right? Like if I was able to understand like ex-girlfriends' feelings the way that I understand feelings and emotions now, I wouldn't have made, I don't think, any of the decisions. I think I ended up cheating on like got two ex-girlfriends, so where the relationship had ended months before emotionally, you know, like although we still claimed to be dating in that function, right? Claimed to be official. The emotions had long gone. And it was just me not knowing how to deal with that and me just moving on from it without actually officially moving on, which is terrible. But yeah, I don't think we would have gotten married.
I mean, I figured.
Yeah. And I think like
San Francisco was good for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and you sort of tout those 6 months or five to 6 months as some of like the greatest personal growth that you've had as well, right? Do you remember exactly how you changed in those like 5-6 months?
I mean, I was sort of forced to like rely on myself and really figure out what the heck like I wanted to do, like with everything, because you were gone. We were really rocky. I was still like fairly newly active again in the church, like my second year back. So, I mean, I would say that's pretty new. But like, obviously, like you weren't there, so like, I couldn't rely on you. And it was just really trying. So like I had to turn to like God. I had to just really build up my faith from like the ground all over again. I even questioned if I wanted to stay at Cincinnati. I applied to both of BYU's schools, got in, was going to leave. I think the only reason I didn't leave was because there was going to be like a mix-up, not a mix-up, something with the semesters. It just didn't line up right. I think I was going to have to wait a few more months before I could go to BYU, and I didn't want to move back home, but I don't know. So it was sort of a waiting game, but since I was admitted, I figured I could just wait. So that's what I was doing. Anyways, sidetrack. But yeah, I changed a lot. I had to really rely on myself instead of constantly, like in my past, like always sort of leaning on someone else to also help me like get by or you can't find happiness in someone else. That's not true, but that's what I would try and do. So I just had to rely on myself. And I mean, that's good in all relationships, because if you're not fully invested in yourself, or you're not taking care of yourself 100%, or then you really can't be present in any relationship or anything. It'll always crumble and fall because the one person that you should have the best relationship with is crap.
Right.
So,
no foundation.
Right.
Yeah. So the reality of the situation, right, is that change is inevitable, but it's also very necessary. And I think when people get sort of upset about progress, it might be because they're not trying to change, right? They're trying to become a better version, or like a better version of themselves without wanting to leave the present time. And in order to become better, we need to change, and I think we need to embrace that. So I guess I'd recommend Ed's his instructions here, right? Is to take a different approach, to choose a different approach, and that's the belief that we can make choices to embrace change and to let it work for us. So make ourselves become better people, better husbands, better wives, better fathers, better brothers, sisters, and then better human beings. Because I'll just say one thing, and then you can take it. I truly believe that the greatest change that we can make in society will only come after we change inside of our families. That if we are respectful and kind and willing to understand people in our own families and our differences of opinions, then when we leave our own homes, we'll be fully capable to understand and acknowledge and respect people in our communities. Go ahead, you had
So I think this is sort of related. So personally, I do some sort of personal like development reading or listening every day. And right now I'm listening to the book The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod on Google Podcasts. And it's absolutely fantastic. But he talks about how having a goal isn't enough, which I guess you could say like just becoming a better person, becoming a better husband, a better wife, like that's a goal, right? But just doing that alone, like it's pointless. It's just like he says, like trying to win, you want to win a basketball game, but staring at the scoreboard isn't going to get you like the win. So what matters more than a goal is your I'm blanking. It's the end of the day and I can't think. It's your strategies. Is that right? No, it's your
attitude?
Systems.
Oh, your
systems. The systems is what is most important. So the things that you do every day to get you to your goal. So what are the things that you need to do to I don't know, to win a basketball game, because that's the analogy I use. Like you have to like practice, you have to communicate, you have to like get stronger, like build your endurance, like all this stuff. And if you do those things consistently, like the goal will happen, like it will follow suit. But if you don't have the right strategies in place, and if you don't continually doing those strategies and getting better and getting better and getting better, the goal won't happen no matter how hard you try.
Yeah.
So
I think perspective is the first step, right? Because if you're staring at the goal, thinking like, how will I ever achieve this? It'd be like standing outside of a 2-story home, staring at the second floor window and thinking, how will I ever jump that high to get into that second floor room? Well, the truth is you're never going to be able to jump from the ground floor up to the second floor window, but you will be able to walk around the corner of the house and then unlock the front door, find a staircase, and then walk up each individual stair, and then eventually you'll make it to the second floor.
Right.
So lining out that strategy, as he puts it, right, and having those individual action steps will inevitably get you to your goal. But you have to have that perspective, not standing outside in the lawn staring up at the second floor window, but visualizing
Right.
that path that you're going to take through the home, up the stairs, into your end goal. And that's a whole different perspective, right? But that's a perspective of success, which I think is very difficult for people to understand, because it's easy to doubt.
Right.
But I think it's also hard to be sad. Like it's hard to be frustrated. You know, it's like hard to be upset and to go through life upset because you're not completing those action steps, right? And you're like not changing. But it's also hard to change. So it's like, choose your hard. Like, would you rather live life like every day hard because you're sad and you're unsuccessful and you're not striving towards anything, so now you're depressed and you barely make it through a day, your job feels unfulfilled, like all of that is hard.
Right.
Why not just choose the other hard?
Right.
And like lay out that perspective. So it's changing your mindset, right?
Right.
And I think the thing that I always stress to people when they come to me asking, like, well, how do you change, right? Or like, how do you have such a positive perspective? And the truth of the matter, biologically speaking, is that you have to physically change your brain. And I bring that up all the time. And again, I'm going to keep this surface level.
He also talks about this in this book. He talks about how in order to make the greatest change, the strategies are important, but the most important impact you can make is changing your self-identity. So you have to think like, oh, if I want to be like a healthy person, then you have to think about, okay, well, what would like a healthy person like do? Like, would a healthy person like eat this? Would a healthy person do that? Like, so you have to change all the thoughts that you've ever had like about yourself to the person that you want to be, or to the thing that you want to be, the thing that you want to become. That's the most important thing, like, period, that you could do. It's because your thoughts are so powerful. We have like 90 something thousand thoughts a day. It's some my therapist told me it's something sort of number like that, but half of them we don't even realize. But if you change the thoughts in like your head to who you want to become, or that's going to have a significant impact on your day, your week, your month, your year. And then looking back at the next year, you're going to be an entirely different person if you change your self-talk and the thoughts in your head.
Right. And that's going to come from daily choices. Right. So the thing that I always like to stress is that with the benefit that we have of living in the 21st century, we have incredible medical science. And we have the understanding and now the equipment to map brains. So to map a thought process and how each brain processes thoughts. And the thing is that habits are simply neurological connections within our brain between synapses, which are the ends of nerves that grow and connect together when we form a new habit. So in order to break a habit, you have to physically break a connection in your brain. And they grow together through repeated actions. That as neurons jump from nerve to nerve, that those synapses will grow closer together, and that jump becomes easier and easier until eventually they connect. So you're physically changing your brain structure, right? And if you think about molding clay, or sort of molding a certain substance, I'm going to say clay because everybody can sort of relate, or Play-Doh. When you have to mold it into a certain way, it takes force. It like takes some maneuvering and some pushing, and so will change, right? Positive change. But as long as we embrace that mindset and we remember, no, this is going to be hard, but it's also what I want. Like, it's what I want to do. Then we're changing our approach. We're changing our, what does he say? Oh, it's approach. Yeah, we're changing our approach to every day. We're changing our approach to change, and we're changing our approach to uncertainty. That when we embrace uncertainty, it creates these opportunities to become better and to learn and to grow and to find ourselves in situations that we may have never found ourselves in before, like positive situations that will benefit our lives greatly, and especially our relationships. And I think that's what we've sort of concluded today through a holistic picture, right? So we didn't only talk about change as one thing, but change in ourselves. Last week we looked at resolutions, which are changes that we want to make in the future. Today we look at change that has happened in the past and where that has left us today. But also the significant benefits that have come from change and from allowing ourselves to change and to morph and to become better people for each other and for our family. So that's, I believe it's an incredible message. And I think it's definitely one that's worth sharing, which is why I wanted to talk about it today. Any last thoughts of encouragement? Thoughts of encouragement for those who are listening, who are maybe still struggling with change or the idea of change?
I guess the initial changes of change are difficult. You didn't shuffle. I thought it was funny. But I mean, in order to see the impact that your changes are making, you have to stay persistent and consistent. So give it time. Whatever, I mean, this could be for whatever it is. So, I mean, I think an easy analogy that most people can relate to is like getting in shape or like losing weight or gaining muscle or something. After you find out the things that you need to do, you're not going to see changes after a day. So that's unrealistic. You're not going to see really that much changes after like a week. But for example, if you stay persistent and consistent with all the right things that are going to get you to be in better shape or to lose weight or to gain muscle, you will start seeing changes after like 4 weeks and after 8 weeks. So it's not going to be super fast. But trust the process. Everyone hates when you say that, but it's true. So do the things that you know you need to do. Keep doing them. And over time, it will happen, because all those decisions that you make in the thousands, millions, I don't know, whatever of moments you have each day, they are going to make a significant impact. And each day, just become 1% better every day. And then at the end of the year, you're like 37% better, right? 30.
If you become 1% better every day, you'll be 365% better.
Sorry.
After a year.
Anyways, you'll be drastically different.
There you go.
Yeah, just a little bit better than you were yesterday.
Yeah.
And keep going.
And I think it was your therapist who said we should avoid the word should.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So don't think about what you should be doing. Mm-hmm. Think about what you could be doing and what you can do today. Mm-hmm. So I know that we set a lot of big goals like we talked about today, but a simple one to understand is eating healthier. So don't say, I'm going to start eating healthier today. Mm-hmm. And then immediately switch to a diet of oatmeal for breakfast and salads for lunch and dinner. Mm-hmm. But when you see that first opportunity to eat 4, 5, 6 cookies, just take 3. Because that's what you can do today. It's like you can eat less sweets today. And that's where you can start. So instead of looking at it as this mountain to climb, think about it as small rocks to hurdle. And then eventually after you hurdle enough rocks, which is what you're saying, you'll look back and realize that you just climbed a mountain. Thank you guys for listening. It's been a cool episode. I liked this. We planned almost none of it. I only knew about this quote that's in Creativity Inc. And for those watching on YouTube, this is what the book looks like. It's got Buzz Lightyear on the front. And Creativity Inc. again. That's Ed Catmull. And it's a great read because he explains all of his lessons learned through films that they made at Pixar. So you can learn a lot of cool things, like how Up originally was a story about like young people trying to change, and then it slowly transitioned to just an old man and a little kid and a tall bird. The tall bird was one of the only things that stayed. Isn't that funny? Anyways, Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, Catmull. Thank you for listening wherever you're listening from. Again, you can find our podcast on Spotify. Anchor.fm/younglove is our home base. And on there, you can see every app that we're distributed to. You can ask your Amazon Alexa or Google Home to look us up. You just say, "Hey Google" or "Hey Alexa, play the podcast Young and in Love." And my Google's probably going to start talking now. But anyways, and they will play the podcast for you. And there
There it is.
there it is. It listened to that whole paragraph. That's why it has no idea what it said. But I promise you it works. And then we're on YouTube now too. And then at Young Love PC on all social media. So that's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter too. And if you get a moment this week, please leave us your thoughts either in the comments on the YouTube videos, or go to Anchor, ANCHOR.F as in Frank, M as in Mary, /Young Love. And there's a little plus sign on that homepage right below our name and our description. Click that plus sign that says voice message and leave us a 1-minute blurb on how change has had a positive impact in your life, or maybe your thoughts on change, or maybe even something that you disagree with us on about change, and something that could open our minds and change our outlook on change. We'd love to include that, or at least make our comments as well on it and share it with the rest of the listeners. Continue to share the podcast with those you love, and we will talk with you guys next week, Wednesday. Thursday.
Yep.
Next week's Thursday.
Bye.